Hi, I'm Mike, and welcome to the Saga of the Clone Saga, a podcast presented by the students of S.H.I.E.L.D. And tonight we are joined by,
Billy.
Matt.
Vincent.
and from the Cowcast, please welcome Mikey, guys.
What's up, guys? Glad to
So,
be here.
Mikey, since you're so glad to be here, please tell us about your history with Spider-Man.
Been reading Spider-Man since I was a kid. It's probably one of my favorite superheroes ever. Is on that list. Yeah, Spider-Man's a great character. I'm an artist, so I hope to draw him one day in Marvel Comics if my career takes me there. So,
I don't
And
know if any of what you just said was true.
um, also, Mikey, do you have any connection to the Clone Saga?
uh, well, the main Clone Saga, no. The Ultimate Clone Saga, yeah.
Well, yeah, that is what we're reading today is the Ultimate Clone Saga. If you read the
I
title,
have basic understanding of the older Clone Saga, but
yeah, but you haven't lived it like we have.
yeah, I haven't lived it. No.
But Vince, what's our sponsor this week?
Our sponsor today is the ACLU. The American Civil Liberties Union is a nationwide nonpartisan organization of more than 500,000 members, countless additional activists and supporters, and 53 affiliates nationwide dedicated to preserving and defending the fundamental rights of individuals under the Constitution and laws of the United States. The ACLU's Washington Legislative Office conducts legislative and administrative advocacy to advance the organization's goal to protect immigrants' rights. The Immigrants' Rights Project of the ACLU engages in a nationwide program of litigation, advocacy, and public education to enforce and protect the constitutional and civil rights of immigrants, including those detained by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Thank you for supporting this podcast. And now we're going to move into the Ultimate Clone Saga, which we're talking about today. I was reading it from this right here, the 9th volume of the Ultimate Spider-Man hardcovers. And it's the Ultimate Clone Saga. This is from late 2006, and it's fairly long, so it spills into 2007, I believe. So it's long enough that it would be a stretch to fit it all in one episode, or at least that was my feeling. Altogether, it's around like 230 pages or so. And so we're splitting it in half. So this episode is just part one. We're talking about Ultimate Spider-Man number 97 through 100.
Well, Vince, before we start, should we should we share our experiences with Ultimate Spider-Man since it's pretty popular?
Yeah, I'd say so. I like Ultimate Spider-Man. It's about the only good thing in the Ultimate Universe, which I kind of grew up with. I followed like week to week comics a lot more closely when I was much younger, when I was dumb enough to pay for them. And I read pretty much most of the Ultimate stuff. And I sort of liked it more back then. And like every single time I really think about or go back to it, there are so many things that annoy me in different areas. But the often said motto or whatever is that Ultimate Spider-Man is kind of just the backbone, which for 200 issues plus, when it eventually transitions into Miles, is just pretty much a great comic book the whole way through with one like authorial direction, while everything that will surround it just lights on fire and dies.
As far as modern comics go, I think that first issue of Amazing Spider-Man, I'm sorry, no, a first issue of Ultimate Spider-Man, that cover's pretty iconic. As I remember seeing that a lot, like just kind of everywhere when the Ultimate Universe was starting up. It was heavily influenced in Marvel's marketing. A lot of the characters they used at that point were the Ultimate characters. And then as far as like my school libraries, they didn't have much comics, but almost every of all my school's comics were the Ultimate comics. So like I think usually we had like Ultimate Fantastic Four and Ultimate Spider-Man. So
I don't have a whole lot of experience with Ultimate Spider-Man. I've recently read through the first maybe 60 issues, but when I was younger, the only story I ever read was the Ultimate Clone Saga. So I'm actually revisiting this.
I I don't like anything Ultimate. Um, well-known fact, I'm not a big fan of Spider-Man, so never really gave Ultimate Spider-Man a chance. I hate the Ultimate version of Venom. I actually don't like, I would say, any of Spider-Man's Ultimate versions of his foes. I think their designs are pretty whack.
Ultimate Kingpin is really cool.
Kingpin's basically the same, though, honestly.
Yes, he's basically the same character.
Okay, but Billy has a good point. If you tally them up, like a lot of the reinterpretations in even Ultimate Spider-Man specifically, at least definitely for me, are really annoying.
I
Like,
completely agree.
I can sort of go back and forth on Ultimate Green Goblin, but there's so many, and some of these aren't villains, but like Ultimate Deadpool is fucking awful. Ultimate Moon Knight is fucking awful. Like the
Ultimate Daredevil is pretty much the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
But there's some dumb stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Mikey, yeah, go ahead.
Ultimate Spider-Man was like the first like Spider-Man comics I started reading when I was younger. My local library had a bunch of Ultimate Spider-Man comics, so I would just go in and just read a bunch of those. I've read from the beginning and all the way up to like Ultimate Clone Saga. Then I stopped reading altogether. Then I picked up when Miles came out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it does kind of tail off pretty much right after this. It kind of dips in quality for a good bit until Peter dies, even though there's still some decent art, which we'll eventually sort of get to at the end of this episode. But I would say for sure there are some really interesting things in Ultimate Spider-Man, and I would say specifically those first 13 issues, I think are one of the strongest chunks of Spider-Man stories.
Sure.
You can hand those to someone, and I mean, it's a complicated thing to say, especially for someone like me. But those first 13 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man are definitely way more approachable than the Stan Lee and Steve Ditko run in certain ways. And Marvel, they've done other kinds of redos of early Spider-Man. You know, there's always like a Marvel Adventures Spider-Man or Spidey or whatever the hell they're doing at the moment. And I think this is the only one that's been super successful where let's redo the stories. So jumping right into Ultimate Spider-Man 97.
Let's do it.
Somehow we managed to not say this while we were talking about the series in general. Brian Michael Bendis writes all of Ultimate Spider-Man, every single issue from 1 through, I mean, if you count the Miles, well, because Miles got a legacy number.
Yeah.
Does anyone remember around what his legacy number was? It had to have been close to like 250.
I have no idea.
But it's up there. And Mark Bagley drew a lot of it, but we'll get to the uneasiness there towards the end. But at this point, those two creators are in their 97th issue. And what's funny is we're talking about how Ultimate Spider-Man was like this modern retelling and stuff. And so we start this issue with Peter Parker talking on the landline phone.
Yeah.
This is already out of date.
Yeah.
The kids are like, "What is that?"
Yeah, what's a landline?
I think it's like a wireless landline, but it's still clearly a landline. And he's talking to Kitty Pryde on the phone because they date each other.
You date in this universe.
Because Kitty Pryde dates people named Peter. Also because Bendis likes cute Jewish girls. Which, I mean, granted, who doesn't? I mean, I guess unless you're a Nazi, you probably don't like cute Jewish.
And this conversation, I think, is really strong. One of Bendis' strengths throughout Ultimate Spider-Man is, and as one would hope, writing teenagers. And this conversation really reads like two overdramatic teenagers having an overdramatic teenager relationship moment.
Yeah, it's pretty realistic,
It's
honestly.
so funny.
It's amazing.
It's about as best you can expect from a 40-year-old balding Jewish dude.
Exactly.
And I think as time went on and on and on, and when you eventually got to Miles, it would be interesting to really see whether he changed, and especially as the characters in the universe are supposed to be evolving with the times, as we mentioned, the landlines and everything. But back to Kitty Pryde, of course, Bendis himself will link her with her fourth boyfriend named Peter, like 10 years after this, in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, a much loved romance, right?
Yes. And it's funny because, well, it's not funny. I'm just overly analytical and for stuff that doesn't matter at all. But the word grounded is used a ton in this issue. And Kitty Pryde was on the Guardians of the Galaxy leading them in the grounded arc. Which
maybe Bendis read this book.
Never read what you write. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But Pete and Kitty, they're arguing because he's still friends with his ex-girlfriend, Mary Jane. And she has a picture of Spider-Man framed behind her bed.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I noticed that.
It's a little weird.
It's not like a nightstand thing. She has probably like a
poster
16x9.
It's a shrine.
So they have an argument and they end up kind of sour with each other, and then we don't see Kitty Pryde for the whole rest of this episode. Pete and MJ, they catch up, and she knows his secret identity as of way back in number 13.
Well, she sews his costume together, right? Whenever it breaks down.
Yeah, because he put like a piece of blue tape to cover up the hole.
Which he says that, but I don't see that when he eventually puts the costume on.
Yeah.
He never had time to fix it. Yeah, but yeah, we don't.
I don't see the tape though. So.
And then we get our first instance of the Ultimate Universe just making references that don't actually connect. Like it's supposed to be, ooh, that's the alternate version of this character, but actually not, because MJ, Mark Raxton walks over and she calls him the Molten Man or something, but she's like, oh, that's his band.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, does the Molten Man eventually happen in the Ultimate Universe? I can't really recall.
I don't think so.
So this scene's pointless and does nothing.
It's only there to be like, here's Mark Raxton in the Ultimate Universe.
Right, but like, is Mark Raxton? How many people are so excited to see Mark Raxton show up?
Well,
I was, because we liked Molten Man in his few appearances in the last couple episodes.
But yeah, that's just how the Ultimate Universe works, especially in X-Men, where it's like every other arc of Ultimate X-Men at a certain point was, here's the ultimate version of this character.
I wish Clint was here to tell us all about what was happening at Ultimate X-Men at this moment, since he's read all of it and likes it.
I'm glad he's not. Someone starts rampaging in the mall, which again, arguably a slightly out-of-date element of this story.
So what do you mean? People going to malls?
Yes.
People go to malls all the fucking time.
The hat he's wearing right now at a mall.
Yeah.
Not as much.
I was literally at the mall earlier today.
Also, they're in Queens. How many malls are...
At this time, none.
Wait.
Like one or two.
But like, Billy, you went to the mall for what? To go shopping? Or do you go to hang out with like your pals and like have a...
Go shopping.
Okay.
Billy lives a life that is perpetually stuck in 1993.
It's true.
Granted, at this point, I think I am too old to know what the teens are doing nowadays, but I don't think they're trolling.
You're literally having sex with a teenager, so I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
That's really gross. I don't think Mallrats.
It's true.
I don't think mall rats are a thing anymore.
Which, speaking of the movie Mallrats, you can catch Billy's hat in the movie Mallrats.
Way
But
to bring it all together.
as he's trying to figure out what the hell's happening in the mall, Spidey saves a child, which a
Okay.
woman accidentally throws in midair.
Amazing.
Saves the child from eating shit. Like, it's funny.
And then the public is just like, get away from the damn child.
Spider-Man is a menace.
I agree.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that they're still doing the menace thing this late into the series, because that's always an iffy part of the Spider-Man story that you kind of have to waver back and forth on, is how the public reacts to him.
Yep.
I think Spider-Man handles the cops much better here than his encounters previously that we've seen, though.
Mhm. Then the Scorpion suddenly shows up with I think, a relatively sleek design. I think this is actually a strong Scorpion design.
You know what?
Better than the
I
John
would have
one.
agreed. I would have agreed, and then I realized that he only has like 3 fingers, and I hate it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the fingers are weird, but other than
Yeah.
that, I mean, it's basic. It's basically the Ditko design.
Yeah, but a little slimmer.
It's a little
Yeah.
slimmer.
A lot sleeker.
Well, no open mouth, because it's it's totally a mask at this point.
The cops show up and they're confused because, again, no one really likes Spider-Man, so they're trying to deal with Spider-Man and this weird Scorpion dude. And Pete busts open Scorpion's mask and discovers he looks just like him. It's Peter Parker.
What?
No.
And then that's a big reveal to get you excited for the next issue. But then this issue also ends with MJ getting kidnapped from her own bedroom. So now moving into Ultimate Spider-Man 98, the cover is some kind of female Spider-Man character. And we don't really get her full backstory within this episode, but this is the first appearance of Spider-Woman. That's what she's called, and we'll get into more details next episode.
I like her.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
dope.
Ultimate Spider-Woman is a pretty cool character.
Yeah, I like her a lot.
It's a pretty solid costume design too. I mean, it's literally just the black suit, just red.
Yeah.
But it looks sleek, and again, it's weird to say. Like, I was kind of joking about this on May Day as well. It also, like, if you put these costumes on a female character, it looks slightly different, and there's a slightly different element as well.
Yes, we hit on. How do we like Bagley's art here opposed to when we formerly saw him?
I think he's better than he was in the 90s.
Is that due to the coloring and inking? I think it might be.
I think it might be.
I don't really know. It's not. I don't think it's just coloring and inking, because it's a totally evolved / different style, because it's more cartoony, and it's not just the fact that Peter Parker is younger. Like, he's doing this whole thing with Peter Parker with the dumb haircut, but also the faces. And to me, it looks totally different from the way he was drawing Peter Parker before, and beyond age. And the thing is that I don't actually think that it's like this artistic choice where he decided, like, I'm going to go more cartoony for this new imprint. I think his style just literally just happened to evolve in that way.
Yeah.
Because his recent stuff past Ultimate Spider-Man also looks like Ultimate Spider-Man. I don't know. I would really go back and forth. I kind of prefer the 90s style, to be honest. And we open this issue with the Ultimate Fantastic Four.
Great.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I like it.
A version slightly made popular by the hit film by Josh Trank. What was that?
God.
2015?
No.
No,
That film made nothing popular.
Not Fan4Stick. Not Fan4Stick.
A movie so bad that to this day I still refuse to see it. I have not watched it.
Don't even bother.
I have
It's
not seen it
good.
either, and I'm not going to see it.
It's not
Yeah,
good.
I don't need to. All I saw was that trailer and went, "Yep, I know what I'm not seeing."
I have better things to do with my life, like read the Clone Saga.
Clone Saga.
Basically, the difference on the Ultimate Fantastic Four, which for its initial few arcs was also written by Brian Michael Bendis, before Mark Millar eventually took more control over it. All of them are slightly younger. Reed, there's more of a focus on him being like more socially awkward and like socially and mentally unfit and stuff like that. Basically, he's autistic.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
I like the reveal of him eventually being the big villain, though, in Hickman's Ultimate stuff.
Spoilers.
And there are also, again, just like Spider-Man, weird elements of the Fantastic Four lore has changed. Like the Ultimate Universe does this really weird, totally different, stupid thing with Galactus. And also Doctor Doom
The Goat Man.
Doctor Doom in the Ultimate Universe is supposed to have hooves instead of human feet. But what happened was Greg Land just kind of forgot about that and drew him with normal feet like he is in the normal universe. And they just rolled with it. And suddenly Doctor Doom had normal feet forever past that.
Because I remember him like having like goat hooves at first, and then suddenly they just disappeared. So.
Yep. And I would say the most notable thing, for better or worse, to come out of Ultimate Fantastic Four is the entire concept of Marvel Zombies.
Yeah. It's kind of wild to think that Marvel Zombies span out of Ultimate FF. It's also wild to think that people like that concept and still buy those stupid books.
Okay, listen. The first Marvel Zombies was
not
that bad.
No,
it was not great, but it wasn't that bad. It
What
was
I've heard,
passable, like one-off kind of thing. And then what made it bad is that they kept making them.
Well, it's actually, I would argue it's a reverse.
Folks, it's at Ollie. It's an Ollie's near you.
It's a reverse bell curve because the first series by Robert Kirkman starts out half decent, and then they just keep pushing it out. But then eventually it gets so far along that you're up to like the 7th or 8th Marvel Zombies miniseries, and they're just like, what the hell do we do now? And so they start fully, like, they have like the main characters who are up against the zombies are just like the supernatural characters and weird shit. Granted, I don't have any interest to read any of it, but
I like the first one.
But yeah, the Ultimate Fantastic Four, I also followed that really closely when I was growing up, and I liked it, but didn't. Well, really, I actually really liked it, but I kind of hate it now.
Remember that great gag where Reed put a helmet on his head that can make things he thinks of materializes, and he makes Sue Storm's mom appear in her lingerie, giant size in the city? That was really funny.
But jumping back into this Ultimate Spider-Man stuff, we open really getting a taste of Reed and the Fantastic Four's personalities by Reed tricking Johnny Storm into drinking his piss.
Fine.
It's funny.
It's water.
In the water.
It's water.
Yes, but he's filtered it, and which I think it's like, I mean, I agree with Reed. It's actually fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, it only becomes dumb when it's explained that Reed was inspired to do this by watching the Kevin Costner film Waterworld.
Yeah. Which, if you're still interested and at Orlando Studios, California, you can still see the Waterworld show.
No, you know what? I think that Reed being inspired by Waterworld to do this dumb thing with Johnny is kind of a good metaphor for the entire Ultimate Universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of Freddie Prinze Jr. references.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can't think of
They both had
a
to eat
reason
him.
why 616 Reed would ever watch Waterworld.
Hulk
No, he
hates
would
Freddie
not.
Prinze Jr. I hate Ultimate Universe. Okay, what else?
I like that line.
No, but what really makes it actually dumb though is because the way he explains it is that he's like, "Oh, I saw this thing on Waterworld and I didn't know it was a thing and I wanted to try it out." But like
Yeah,
if you're this like
Reed is smart.
if you're this uber genius scientist, and especially in the Ultimate Universe, it's explained more so that his powers are directly linked to his brain matter and stuff like that. So his stretchy powers, Reed is just like ridiculously smart in this universe. I mean, less smart than he is in the real universe, but they try and give more dumb explanations for it. And so it's like you really don't understand how urine works and just like fluids and stuff. It's pretty dumb.
Sue's reaction is pretty funny too. She's like, "Reed, we don't give people water made from urine." He's like, "Okay," and it's funny.
I have a hard time buying that Sue is with this Reed at all.
I have a hard time buying 616 who was with that Reed at all.
But our little reminiscence with the Fantastic Four is interrupted by Spider-Man landing on their window carrying Scorpion.
What a fucking menace.
And he almost dies, I guess, from their security, but Reed calls up one of the Baxter Building employees named Sinnott, who is named after Joe Sinnott, a longtime inker of the Fantastic Four. And they analyze Scorpion, and they say that he's a 94%, that the body is a 94% match to Peter Parker. And so Pete is like, well, shit. And he just rips off his mask and reveals his identity to all the Fantastic Four.
Excuse me, Vince. It's 94.2% match.
Yeah.
0.2 is very important.
Okay.
They call up Nick Fury.
Ben Jackson.
Shield has nothing to do with this. Did you guys like the joke about the spider? I thought it was kind of funny.
What, where he asks him how he got his powers, and he's like, "No, it's just a spider."
Yeah, but then he says it was a really big spider.
It was really
I
big.
mean, no, because I've seen it done better.
Yeah. And then because we have to stretch out the story some more and introduce other bullshit, Pete has to quickly run home so he isn't grounded.
No, not grounded. So he isn't kicked out of the house.
Yeah. May don't play.
No.
Well, Ultimate Aunt May don't play.
Yeah, Ultimate Aunt May don't play.
She's kind of a bitch, honestly. Like,
yeah, like
No, Ultimate Aunt May is one of the best Ultimate characters
she's fucking great
in the entire universe.
like no, she's a badass woman, but like she's kind of a bitch to Peter, who's essentially her son.
Yeah, but like her excuse for being a bitch to Peter is like, I'm not actually like your mother, so like
Yeah, but like
my life.
Excuse,
she
Mikey.
kind of is his mom.
yeah,
I'm not your real mom.
yeah. I'm saying like her excuse for it is kind of like BS when she kind of is his real mom, like kind of is his like Ray's mom.
Yeah.
Pete discovers that MJ is missing, so he tries to look for her, and he runs into the girl from the cover who uses the word tiger. And so it's like, ooh, spooky. And
It's MJ.
there's just like 4 pages of these awkward fight scenes where she's toying with him because she fully knows who he is, that he's Spider-Man and everything like that. He's freaking the hell out thinking, where the hell is MJ? And does this weird chick in a costume have anything to do with it? And she's making like jokes. Like I read it as like she's almost joking that he's harassing her. And it just ends. Also, she shoots webs out of her fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, her fingertips. Oops.
And she basically collapses a building on him and then just runs away.
Yeah, pretty much.
To be resolved later.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as he keeps searching for MJ, Pete runs into Gwen Stacy
At his old house, like
yes.
Which by this point he's having a total mental breakdown.
mm-hmm.
So this issue again, we have 2 major like ending moments. We have Gwen Stacy, who should be dead, And then we have Mary Jane trapped in a rundown Oscorp building with someone who looks like Peter, though we don't get the full like face shot in this issue.
Now, I have a quick question because I don't think I got there while I was reading Ultimate Spider-Man. When and how did Gwen die?
I know how she died. Carnage killed her.
It was Carnage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like drained the life force out of her and just killed
Okay,
her.
that's what I thought.
Now into Ultimate Spider-Man 99. I don't really like this cover. It's Gwen on it, and it reminds me too much of the way Liam Sharp was drawing Gwen Stacy like 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well,
Clone Saga.
I don't like any of the Ultimate covers. Just in the Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Universe in general, I don't like the way they're designed. I don't like the bars on the side.
Yeah,
It's just, I'm not a fan.
Yeah, I would say the entire Ultimate Universe has terrible covers. You have the dress with the two bars on the side, so you get like a third of the book with actual art. And then way later, like when they rebooted the line way after this and called a bunch of the titles Ultimate Comics, that was when Jonathan Hickman was writing the Ultimates. And
well, not quite yet. I mean, but it's when he transitioned over. There were still a couple arcs from Millar first.
And you had Nick Spencer on X-Men way back when they revealed that Colossus was gay or whatever. I don't really care.
That's how we got Jimmy Hudson, right? Or was that Ultimate X?
That was like Ultimate X. Yeah.
Drawn by Art Adams. But those Ultimate Comics books, I don't know if you've ever seen those covers. A lot of them are like this awful, like 3D looking models.
Yeah, they're really bad.
And still with the like border sides.
Well, there's a lot of white space on the Spider-Man ones.
Yeah. But I mean, besides the dress, Gwen is just dressed weird.
Yeah.
Is she in a gurney? Like a hospital like gown?
No,
she's in a crop top.
It's just supposed to be this super tight crop top and like low cut capris or whatever the hell she has
on the cover, yeah.
And she's very thin, and it's just it looks weird.
Yeah, I'm not.
And so Gwen Stacy is alive, apparently, and Pete is freaking hell out, and she has some kind of memory gap. Now we go over to MJ. She's being held captive by a Peter Parker with half of a melted face.
It's Kane.
When I was a kid and I read this book, this scared the living crap out of me.
It's genuinely creepy.
Yeah, it scared me as well.
Yeah, but as Matt said, the original Clone Saga parallel would be Kane, I guess, or Jack, for example.
My boy.
One of the clones with actual degeneration issues, and he is going to make MJ just like him, so she's not always in trouble, and he doesn't have to worry about protecting her. Reed.
Yeah. There's clearly something like wrong mentally with the majority of these clones, because so far we've seen, spoiler alert, it's clones. The Scorpion was losing his mind. This guy with melted face has lost his mind entirely. So these,
I feel like they were like the early versions. Like I feel like this dude was definitely the first clone to come out. Like,
right.
He's also in like a tattered homemade Spider-Man costume.
Yeah, like this clone makes him more creepy because he just has an obsession with MJ, and that's all he talks about. And it's just like, damn.
Reed and Sue, they're going to get Nick Fury involved after all, going back on their promise to Peter. And as Pete is trying to figure out what the hell happened to Gwen, we see some of her flashbacks, which are a little mysterious. And
you mentioned that the Scorpion's tail in this is surgically, it's part of him, so it's attached to his spinal cord.
Yeah, they said it was grafted to his spinal cord.
Yeah, and that's why he needs the suit. That's the reason why he goes to Nick Fury.
Yeah, they said if they took the suit off, it would kill him, like straight up.
The implication is that his spine will just like slip out.
Yep.
Oh, God.
Some Mortal Kombat shit.
Yeah.
But Gwen has these flashbacks, and Pete's like, well, how did you get out of the hospital? How did you get here? and there are these panels with like a weird blur and kind of black borders and overlooking the city, and we will get to that. Then Aunt May shows up and finds them and starts freaking the hell out. And so Pete's strategy to calm her down is to reveal that he's Spider-Man, which just causes her to freak out even more and explain how he's been lying to her and how she's not his real mom and she never wants to see him again.
Yeah, like she did us with just like
Escalates pretty quickly to say.
Yeah, like you're Spider-Man? Okay, get out of my house. I don't want to see you again.
Then things escalate even more when Peter Parker's father walks in. And that's the one big reveal here. And then the other tease at the end is Nick Fury is calling in the Spider Slayers.
Sam Jackson.
Now, issue 100, the big issue 100, there is a wraparound Mark Bagley cover with all kinds of Spider-Man everywhere, and it's pretty awesome.
I prefer this cover. The variant
nice.
cover is the one that's on your hardcover, Vince. I don't like that one as much.
This is the variant.
Mm.
With floating heads, very common comic book trope.
Well, that's an homage to the Bermuda cover with the floating heads, too.
Yes.
And this issue 100, basically it starts with pizza time.
Pizza time.
Well, I guess.
In a way.
Yeah.
But, I mean, well, I guess we'll debate, because Richard says cold pizza is the best.
Mm.
So, what's our verdict on cold pizza?
Depends on the type of pizza.
I dig it. It's fine.
It's entirely dependent on the type of pizza.
It is. Some toppings don't work cold.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to put it in the microwave or a toaster oven, even better.
We gotta toast it. Don't microwave that thing. It gets spongy and gritty.
Oh, God. Why would you microwave pizza?
I don't really care. It's still pizza.
Okay, but listen, Seasons pizza tastes exactly the same when you put it in the microwave.
Seasoned pizza? I don't know if it's real pizza, but it is amazing.
It is.
I don't know what seasoned pizza is.
I think it's just pure drugs.
It has to be.
Is this a Philly thing?
Yes.
I guess.
It's a Philly thing. We get our next clone, a six-armed dude in a black suit.
I love him.
He's the best clone.
He's my favorite.
He fights Melty Face, but then gets
the 2099 logo on his chest, like the giant spider, like that. It reminds me of it.
No, shut up.
Doesn't he also have a pointless diamond on his forehead?
Yeah.
I like to imagine he has a third eye, and that's just where his
it's Tien from Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
I thought he had like a lot of eyes, so he needed the extra eyes on his mask, but turns out that's not the case. He only has 2 eyes. So.
But he gets the shit beaten out of him anyways within this episode, so he doesn't really matter. And basically, most of this issue is Richard Parker just dumping exposition and backstory on us.
And also Aunt May freaking the fuck out and telling them to get out of her house.
This whole issue is literally just an exposition dump.
Yeah, I didn't really like it. It's
as far as milestone issues go, pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
I only liked it because Aunt May's just constant freak out, and I love it. That's the only part I liked about it.
Well, it's only funny because of Bagley's facial expressions that he draws on her.
Yeah.
Let's run through Richard Parker's backstory. He worked for Bolivar Trask, and he made Venom, or the symbiote stuff, with Eddie Brock. And I forgot this part. So, does Eddie Brock have a son named Eddie Brock or something?
Yeah, Eddie Brock Jr. Yeah.
Okay.
And I told you I hated Ultimate Venom.
Ultimate Venom's really weird.
Richard is not going to not talk about it.
Richard backed out at the last minute, and then everyone else got on an airplane and died. And maybe there was some foul play involved, probably. Then Richard gets involved with Henry Gyrich, who is in opposition to Nick Fury and his Ultimates kind of deal.
Well, no, it's years before the Ultimates though. It's just when Fury's like trying to kick up the plan while he even before he's lost his eye and stuff.
Yeah, but it's like the very old basic groundwork of the Ultimates idea, at least, which is really just Mark Millar ripping off the Authority, which he was writing before the Ultimates, but which I should note he did not create. And it's just the idea of a more proactive, like, major superhero team in a universe, and like a sort of slightly fascist one, which is like basically the Ultimate. That's the problem, is that the Ultimates book, it's either this like overblown trash, or it's this weird satire of superhero comics, but that doesn't really work.
It's a satire of superhero comics that's also like a parody of the current political landscape it's in.
I don't think it works as satire though, because Millar writes it with all the subtlety of a goddamn sledgehammer.
Yeah, well, it doesn't work. But even if it did work, it wouldn't work because Marvel is trying to position it as the Avengers, the flagship title of this alternate universe, and it's not like the entire Ultimate Universe matched that like satirical Authority type of tone.
No.
Especially not Ultimate Spider-Man or Ultimate X-Men and Ultimate Fantastic Four, which also, like, there's really no consistency to the Ultimate Universe besides that it's inconsistent and annoying. But this whole Henry Gyrich versus Nick Fury thing is kind of ironic and distracting because it is more of a role reversal compared to the 616, where Henry Gyrich, he's the one who controls the Avengers and is kind of a annoying asshole that you're rooting against and you don't want him to get up to his deal. And so the fact that they flipped that and use Henry Gyrich here at all, to me, as someone who's like very versed in the 616, it's not cool at all. It's just really distracting.
It's just a name drop. We need another like government agent character.
Yeah, the whole, like, the selling point of the Ultimate Universe for like half of its stories was just, what is this character like in the Ultimate Universe? What's our twist on this?
Well, the original point of the Ultimate Universe was that Marvel wanted to make comics more accessible. So the Ultimate Universe in itself was supposed to be a more new reader friendly kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then by year 10, it got totally off track due to Jeff Loeb's Ultimates 3 and other doings that they decided to do Ultimatum. And then ever since then, they really was like, they'd bring it back and then after a year or two, not know what to do with it and then try to kill it again.
Yep. And Richard watches a video of Peter Parker doing Spidey stuff, but not having his costume on. And Pete and Gwen, they keep getting annoyed between these chunks of exposition and asking, how the hell is this girl alive sitting next to me? Because this entire issue is just backstory.
Yeah. I love that. I love how Pete is just getting so fucking impatient and fed up with his own father. But I also love in this video thing, in the flashback, which is wild. Peter is hitting Venom in the chin with a tire so hard that he bit his tongue off.
Damn.
I'm pretty sure that actually happened when he fought Venom.
Yeah, it's a callback to their first fight because don't they fight on the football field and Peter doesn't have his costume on?
I believe so. I don't remember too clearly, but I think that might be almost a direct panel rip from when he fought Venom first time.
You also fight him like that in the Ultimate Spider-Man video game.
Mm-hmm.
And in that game, there are segments where you play as Venom, but also, I don't know if it's in the very end or you have to unlock it or whatever, but you can also play through parts of the game as Beetle.
Why?
Yeah,
I remember.
No way.
Yeah.
I remember fighting Ultimate Wolverine as Venom in that game.
Yeah.
Mm.
And this issue, as it wraps up, Richard basically implies that Gwen is some kind of bullshit. And before he gets his answers out, Nick Fury shows up to arrest everyone in this building. And our giant reveal here is that Gwen Stacy is Carnage.
Yeah. Okay.
Another moment that kind of freaked me out when I was a child.
Yeah, when I was a child, I kind of like went off of like animated series knowledge. So like seeing this, I was like, this makes no fucking sense. Like,
I also didn't realize that the Ultimate Universe was a different universe.
yeah,
Sitting here
I
reading
thought this was the main
Wow.
universe.
I was so confused about
that's
how
no,
Gwen's
that
back and she's
that-
Carnage, and
well, that's a whole thing I had as a kid too, because the Ultimate Universe was so prevalent in Marvel's marketing at that time that you would have thought it was.
Yeah, and I didn't think in comics there were like alternate realities and alternate universes, so I just assumed that this was the main one. So
right. And like to be fair, maybe I was just a dumb kid, and I was, but yeah, I was confused as a child.
Yeah, it's pretty weird to bring Gwen Stacy and the Clone Saga, link it with Carnage. I'm not a big fan.
Well,
Well,
speaking
I
of
don't
Carnage,
know.
we
It
do
kind
have.
of makes sense because it did not get more '90s than Clones, except for Carnage.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I will say that since we have Carnage here and Bagley is drawing this book, it is kind of cool to see that he draws Carnage kind of totally different from the way we see him normally.
Totally different. You mean much worse? Because that's how I feel. You mean?
Yeah, I don't like this Carnage design at all.
Well, I was kidding. I don't like this Carnage design, but I'd like to at least applaud Bagley for once again putting changes on it. Like he could have drawn this
I
Carnage.
just fucking noticed that Carnage also only has 3 fingers. Why? Why do all these villains only have 3 fingers on each hand?
Ask Mark Bagley.
ask him.
We gotta change everything.
Yeah.
And the other final part of this issue is that something has happened to MJ, but we don't really get a splash page or anything for it. And on that note, we'll pick up with the other half of this clone story in the next episode. But I want to dive into a few things.
Wait, we forgot something.
At the end of issue 100, the longtime Marvel editor Ralph Macchio acknowledges that Bendis and Bagley are soon to surpass the record set by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby for the longest continuous run by a creative team on a Marvel comic, which is a little more complicated of a record than most people usually refer to it as, because there are longer records outside of Marvel, but I don't think anything by DC came close to it, mostly because through the 80s, no DC comic had a consistent creative team for any extended period. There was always like a kind of a stable of artists on each title or franchise. Even though Kurt Swan drew Superman stories continuously for like almost 30 years,
Yeah.
it was never like 50 in a row. It was like he's going to draw 8 stories in Action Comics, 10 stories in Superman, and a few in Adventure this year, and they're not in a row or anything like that. And the same thing with the Batman books and stuff like that. For example, longer creative runs on just other stuff. There was like a 15-year Lone Ranger run by the same writer and artist. I think the writer was Gaylord Du Bois, who wrote a lot for Gold Key and has a great name. And obviously in indie stuff, there's been some interesting stuff since then. Cerebus was probably ending right about at this point, where Dave Sim and Gerard, or however you say his name, did 300 issues. And Eric Larson by himself has also passed this. And then the letters page acknowledges that Mark Bagley is going to leave this book, and the letters page says after issue 110, but it's actually 111. So I'm not really sure where that confusion happened. And the artist following Mark Bagley on Ultimate Spider-Man is initially Stuart Immonen. And you get other great artists doing arcs or runs on Ultimate Spider-Man. Eventually you get Sarah Pacelli and other people like that. And so it still looks good, but it's definitely different when you had Mark Bagley drawing it for over 100 issues, and then you start having more inconsistency in other artists. So what does Mark Bagley leave Ultimate Spider-Man, arguably his signature work, to go do?
Justice League.
He goes to DC for a 3-year exclusive contract, and he didn't really work on anything super memorable. He drew at least parts of every issue of Trinity, which was one of DC's weekly series following the success of 52. That was with Kurt Busiek, and it's Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman hanging out for 52 issues, but it's like stupid multiverse stuff, and Kurt Busiek just kind of ignoring any continuity and tying into his own stuff because it somehow connects back to JLA Avengers in a minor way. It's really weird.
It's not as good as just the Matt Wagner 3-issue book.
Yeah. And Bagley also did a minor Batman arc with Judd Winnick while Dick Grayson was Batman.
Yeah, they did 6 issues, and then Tony Daniel takes over as writer and artist.
Then he does a pretty significant run on Justice League, mostly with James Robinson, and it's just fine. The Justice League book had been kind of weak for a period, and would be weak for a period, and so depending on who you ask, it's a kind of little gem run, but no one's gonna recommend it off the bat for new readers.
His run is it's post Cry for Justice, so there's that staying there. And I mean, he's not really drawing the main Justice League characters. It's Dick Grayson as Batman, Mon-El's the Superman, and then Donna Troy is the Wonder Woman of that Justice League at that time.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting question as I was really looking more into Bagley's career and stuff like this. Has Bagley recovered and put out a memorable work since he left Ultimate Spider-Man in 2007, which was over 10 years ago?
Not yet. Hopefully he will in Mark.
So he came back to Marvel and one of the major things he did was the Death of Spider-Man arc, ending the saga of Ultimate Peter Parker, which he started with Bendis, and then that sets up the whole saga of Miles with Sarah Pichelli. And go see our last special episode to see us talk a little bit more about Miles, even though eventually on this podcast we'll see Miles once more, at least once more than once. And then after that, he's done some boring projects, sadly. He did also with Bendis Avengers Assemble, the first 8 issues or whatever, or maybe it's 12, which is just forced loose continuity movie Avengers team fighting Thanos.
Yep.
And bringing the Guardians of the Galaxy back and just basically washing away everything that Abnett and Lanning ended on. Then after that, Bagley did a crappy Fantastic Four run with Matt Fraction, and Matt Fraction abandoned both of those Fantastic Four books that he was writing. Then he did a so-so Hulk run, which was a unnecessary relaunch of Mark Waid's Hulk run, still written by Mark Waid. They just wanted a new #1. And then Mark Waid ditched that book, and Jerry Duggan took over. And it's actually, I'd say it's maybe his strongest work since leaving Ultimate Spider-Man. But it's not winning any awards or anything. And then you have Ultimate End. He came back to the Ultimate Universe to kill Peter Parker, and then he came back to kill the Ultimate Universe. And that series was pretty universally regarded as absolute unintelligible trash. And then what do you put Mark Bagley, the legendary Mark Bagley, on after your big reboot Secret Wars? All new X-Men.
Oh.
The team of teenage time-displaced X-Men, which no one wants around anymore.
Oh, shit, yeah.
And then what is the next great project they're going to put him on after that series ends? Let's put him on the return of Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, who is now a Deadpool ripoff.
At least that one made sense. At least he drew Ben Reilly in the 90s.
Yeah. But now he has a really shitty costume, and is nothing like what anyone wants him to be. And we will eventually read those issues.
Yay!
And once everyone freaks out about the shitty costume and that shitty book, they kind of reorients the book. And as Mike said, it makes sense. Mark Bagley drew Spider-Man in the 90s. He drew Ben Reilly. So next, let's put him on the Venom Legacy relaunch.
Oh my god.
And Mark Bagley lasted on that Venom title for 4 issues. So now let's give this great, well, what maybe arguably is one of Marvel's most revered artists. Let's give him this weird Deadpool miniseries, and then let's bring him back for more Venom, a dumb Venom spinoff. It's like First Host or whatever it's called.
Keep going back to the treasure trove, trying to find more gold.
And now on that
First
note,
Toast, just saying.
Matt, what is Mark Bagley allegedly doing coming soon?
All right, so starting in March, Bagley's working with Zdarsky, I believe, right? On a mini series called Spider-Man Life Story, which is about what if Peter Parker aged in real time, and I am very excited for it.
It seems like a cool concept. I'll definitely check that book out. The covers the release so far look great.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. So I'll check it out.
Zdarsky's run is spectacular. While I stopped reading it because it's not what I wanted, but apparently it was really good. And I trust his writing ability. Bagley is a good artist as well. So I have high hope for this book.
Yeah, and very fitting for that series as well, of course.
Of course.
So tune in next episode for the second part of the Ultimate Clone Saga. And thanks for watching.